Already the 6th edition of our topic special webinars. Well, it's good to see so many people are already here today. Well, we've received some very positive feedback on our previous Holland Semiconductors webinar about cybersecurity. It was some time ago, but a number of people, they asked us to stick to the topic and see how we can take a deep dive into this matter. So, well, as we like to get feedback and of course also use it, we will again talk about cybersecurity, but today, this time in a slightly different way and with an additional topic. But please let me first introduce myself. My name is Tom van der Dussen. I work for Holland Semiconductors, that's a cluster within the group of high-tech NL community. Well, I'm very happy to work here. It's a great community and be part of the team. It's a growing team, I can also tell. So together with my colleagues and all of you, I like to play a valuable role to bond our members between each other, but also towards international markets, and of course our sister organizations like the Silicon Europe Alliance, which is a community of 11 similar institutes working all over Europe. Well, in case you like to learn more about our community or what I can do for you, well, please feel free to call me, send me an email, and I'll get back to you, because of course, we're here and available and ready for all of you. Well, finally, and before we give the floor to our 3 guests, there are a few practical things about today's session I would like to share with you. As this is a webinar with a full agenda and quite a lot of participants, do ask you to be patient in case you have a question or remark or suggestion. So please mute your microphone and raise your digital hand in case you would like to say something. And if you would like to check who's also present here today, you can check via the puppet sign on top of your screen. And please make use of the chat to make a remark or type any question or suggestion towards us and the others. Well, today's topic, it's about IP and cybersecurity. So that's slightly different than just cybersecurity. And we have 3 guests that will tell us more from their point of view. And the idea of today's topic was mentioned as we in the Netherlands invest hugely in research and development, not only in semiconductors, of course, but also in general and many other markets. And of course, we must make sure to receive the profits and benefits from these investments. However, unfortunately, it's not always the case, and therefore we need to undertake actions to make sure we do. Well, the actions you can take are several. And today we'll learn more about 2 different ways. First one is protection via a hardware solution. Next to that, IP protection via contracts and similar ways. And on top of that, last but not least, the Digital Trust Center will tell how to protect your intellectual property from an IT perspective. Well, our 3 guests of today who will tell us more on their expertise is firstly Mr. Eduard Hoeberichts, CEO of SandGrain. I know that Eduard has been working in the semiconductor industry since 1995, so well over 25 years of experience in our industry. And Eduard will tell about a new method to prevent counterfeit of products. Not everybody is aware that many products are copied and sold as if they are the real thing. This not only reduces your sales, of course, but also damages a company's image and leads to costs nobody covers, except for the company that is hit by these digital activities. So Eduard will tell us more about their solution. Our second guest is Mr. Benjamin van Kessel. Benjamin works as an IP lawyer for the globally active law firm Baker & McKenzie, well known. In daily life, and for more than 20 years, Benjamin and his colleagues assist multinationals on a wide range of IP matters. Of course, it is important to document the inventions a company has made. Next to that, to think about various ways to protect the IP. And on top of that, there are options to sell licenses towards third parties or inventions in a total way. Benjamin will introduce us into the exciting and interesting topic. And last but not least, do we welcome Mr. Jacco van der Kolk. Jacco represents the Digital Trust Center, or in short, DTC. For as far as you didn't No, yet the Digital Trust Center is part of the Ministry of Economic Affairs, and they support Dutch companies with their cyber resilience. As mentioned before, do you need to protect your IP and company information in various ways? I also wish this kind of activities would not be necessary, but well, today's world tells us that spies are active and others simply hack computer systems to steal information. Luckily, people like Jacco and the DTC support us to protect ourselves in the best way. So very good to see Jacco today and learn more from them and their activities. Well, now I'd like to introduce Eduard. As we have a tight schedule, I would like to bring the spotlight towards Eduard. Eduard, if you're ready, can you please share your screen and switch on your camera to tell us more about SandGrain activities?
Yes, I have switched on my camera and I hope you can see me. So excuse for the sluikreclame behind me. There's a lot of SandGrains there. And I want to talk about SandGrains, or very new method to have, let's say, very unique little chips that you can add as trust anchors to all kinds of things. And one of the first things would be high-tech equipment that you can think of. So my presentation actually deals with two areas. First is using authentication as a system to protect against IP theft. And counterfeit is one of the big ways counterfeit or IP theft is actually taking place, often at the, let's say, the later stages of high-tech equipment. And then finally, also authentication as a basis for cybersecurity and a new form of cybersecurity for things, and not only people, but things, installed bases, equipment, modules, electronic components, and all made in Europe. So we are a startup. You might never have heard of us. That's correct. We have been out only since a year, more or less. So let's talk about numbers. And when you talk about high-tech equipment, when a company like ASML or Philips MRI or high-tech sells a system, when you sell a system, you actually are looking at today at least 30 years of life cycle equipment revenue. And that consists of sale, the first sale, the resale, the second resale, often also the sum of the services every year and the sum of the parts and the consumables. So one equipment sale you can equate to, let's say, 500%, and not to 100%, but to 500% revenue stream over the years, and a brand that is in the market with a reputation to protect. To control these is not only circular, but is actually also financially quite attractive. That is something that I'd like to establish. And maybe as a benchmark, we think that there is no counterfeit, but even for defense type of equipment, there is the Pentagon in a recent study estimated that at least 15% counterfeit is something that they have to deal with. In our calculations and also in the use case we did together with VDL ETG, we are actually assuming 5%. So we are assuming that we are already better than US defense products. So if you look at, let's say, a solution for end node authentication in a system that you see on the left-hand side, you see the functional blocks of a system, and on the right-hand side, you see examples of products that are using this. And of course, you will recognize Philips here and ASML. I have managed the ASML installed base for almost 10 years, so I have a little bit of experience in this area. So, and if you look at the topic of today, which is counterfeit and IP protection, and you assume 15%, then you can also make some estimates on what is the damage, the loss that you can face with illegal counterfeit operators and operating in your installed base. So if you look, these are numbers that are also based on use on an Philips and MRI scanner, but I can tell you from my own experience that for the ASML systems, the PAS 5500 systems, which were sold in the 90s and in the 2000s, the numbers are almost the same. They vary a little bit, but almost the same. And you can see that the numbers vary. They can be between 5% or even higher, 20% over the margin. And by applying control of the individual assets, and you actually apply control over circularity as well. So you basically have control over service quality, refurbishment, parts harvesting, and recycling at the same time. So all of these elements have a value, and if you add those value, you can see that you can easily lose 10% of your product lifecycle margin to other parties. Now, if you look at the part of counterfeit of parts alone, then we have developed a small use case with VDL. And with VDL, we have jointly investigated an important module for an important customer. And we assumed that there was a 5% annual counterfeit with 2 key modules of cost of goods and 30,000 with a good sales margin on top of it as well. But also the other PCBs in the module that VDL makes, about 10. But these are the prices that are typically related to that. Now, the life cycle of this module is 7 or 8 years, but in a 20-year time period, you need 2 replacements and or repairs in the life cycle. So also this is actually a conservative estimate, and also the IP counterfeit 5% is not a high estimate. So the calculation is then actually quite straightforward. You can say that on the bigger modules, you lose about 1 million per year in business. And if you look at the total, it's about 1.3 billion per year, which actually bleeds away or has bled away already in the past. So if you look at the installed base of these type of modules over the past 15 years, and you add up these numbers, then you see that there's actually quite a large amount of bleeding that is happening for OEMs or OMMs in this case. Right? And it's not only the money that is involved, but it is also if there are parts in a system that are actually not the original parts, but counterfeit parts, then the service engineers that go there and find different configurations than they expect, you say, okay, the system is down because we don't have the right parts with us. So system down, service engineer waiting, everybody in panic, sending the latest and the best people. And then obviously also for customer satisfaction, that is not a good thing. So if you look at the business itself, the counterfeit happens, bleeding happens. People are often even not aware of it because the service groups don't report business that is lost. You don't often see it as lost. And it's also often in the second stage and the third stage from equipment, although it can happen in the first stage as well. If you add it up, it adds up to a significant loss over the installed base. It's not visible to the organization, and you get also internal friction, time loss with customer, negative effects on service level agreements and things like that. I have not addressed here other things like false warranty claims. Let's say PCBs that are under warranty in one system and are actually put in a system that is under warranty. That happens actually quite regularly. And then last but not least is also brand reputation. You can also say it is also if you identify it, it's also an opportunity that can be addressed. There is actually a significant, with simple measures, there is actually quite a good payback, a good total available market of your own installed base. You can actually also do this on your installed base with retrofits, field change orders, upgrades in the field, and things like that, which are normal and regular for most equipment OEMs. And you can get a control because you cannot, let's say, force customers into working with you, but you can at least work with third-party licensed service providers and not wild service providers. And legally, you're not permitted to control the business. It has to be open for competition, but you can manage the competition. And managing that, you do that by what we call the trick of authentication, and that is basically the basis of our new technology. Authentication is actually the simple act of every time when you have a unique chip, and we call that chip a unique chip in the sense that every SandGrain in the world, no two of them are the same. So if you are connected, you can say, hey, are you who you say you are? Yes, I am who I say I am. And if you do that all the time, or once per day, or once per hour, or once per second, you get, let's say, what we call an authentication platform. And authentication is actually, if you look at it, a central and essential element of security of all connected systems. So we have created with new type of lithography a way to give unique chips unique numbers. Authentication is something new, and what can you do in cybersecurity with that? And this is my last slide, so I hope I'm still reasonably in time limits. If you have, let's say, known unique numbers at the on every specific module, you do not only have lifecycle identification, but you have also authentication. So challenge response, are you who you say you are? Doing that all the time raises cybersecurity levels significantly, not only in the installed base of the products, but also during the supply development with sub-suppliers and things like that. You can actually connect all these numbers to each other. For high-tech equipment, probably not necessary, but you can have per end node advanced levels of security. You can have, let's say, specific keys, ephemeral keys, sensor data, anti-tamper techniques per end node as well. Having your installed base with, let's say, all these endpoints, you can also start doing context analysis, anomaly detection, behavioral analysis, and things like that. And last but not least, authentication can also integrate with cryptographic systems globally, like symmetric or even post-quantum requirements. Important for the future is also that you can integrate with several users. That could be customers, but also selected suppliers as well. And for the future, also important is European certification. There's now a whole network of certification, but Europe is working on, let's say, coordinated ENISA certification. In our case, EU common criteria and EU cloud services as well. So a European answer, a new answer for counterfeit protection, a lot of money, and also a new way to address cybersecurity, not for people, but for things. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Eduard. Quite impressive what you've built in a few years. Since when did you start developing this kind of solution?
It started with a European project, and Bob van der Bel is there, so I'm happy he's there. It's called Sunrise. But before that, I actually worked with Mapper and US DoD already on these type of things, because they already said the same things. And that was in 2016 and 15. So okay. I've been working on this for quite some time. Yeah.
Quite some time. Yeah. Well, impressive, and also the numbers you showed from the VDL analysis. There are really huge risks in losing money, so to say.
Yeah, I think that if you look at equipment and the life cycle equipment, you say that the stream of revenue is actually 500%, and it's your brand. And the new thing is that it's your brand, it's your machine, it's also your machine after 30 or 40 years. It should not end up in the DOML, but it should end up at the original suppliers. And it should be also able to share data in a cyber secure manner, because hacking and cyber is targeting more and more also suppliers and the supply chain, which is, I think, a perfect end of my presentation and a start of the next presentation. Yes.
Yeah, thank you indeed. We have to keep an eye on the time. Mr. Benjamin van Kessel, I can see you're on screen. Welcome. Are you ready to tell us a little bit more about the services from your company, Baker & McKenzie?
Absolutely. If you allow me to share my
your screen,
and if you can confirm that it's actually
yep, I see your screen.
Great. So thank you. My name is Benjamin van Kessel. I'm an IP partner here in the Amsterdam office of Baker McKenzie, a worldwide globally active firm. We do have many offices across the globe, ranging from North America, South America, to the Asia Pacific region in Europe. I'm a lawyer for almost 20 years, and I was just thinking when I did my studies in the 90s, yes, I'm that old, that the whole internet started and I made my first Hotmail account, and look where we are 25 years plus further. There are so many, still so many developments in the technical field, cybersecurity. This was a field that simply did not exist like 30, 40 years ago. And now it's really taking off, and our daily lives are completely affected by it. And that's also what you see in all the legal developments. So what I found kind of interesting is that we have the developments in real life, and then legal is always after the actual developments. So you try to find solutions after the problem has occurred. And I'm always interested in a proactive legislator, so to say. And it seems that on a European level, but we talk about it a little bit later, that the European Union, and that has also something to do with the current market developments, that there's an accelerator in lots of fields, as we will see. So the agenda for my presentation is that I would like to touch a little bit on current market developments, because those affect the legal developments as well. Then I will tell something about the IP rights that are relevant to the semiconductor industry, to get more a bit of a gist of what we're talking about. And then I talk a little bit about IP enforcement and the various tools you have. And I will conclude with some brief overview of current cybersecurity developments, legal developments. And then I think the next person is very suited to take that subject further. So first, some market developments. I think like we've seen that, and probably everybody is aware of that, there are huge geopolitical tension. One that comes to mind, which really affects the semiconductor industry, is the roles between US, Europe versus China. As you are probably also aware, is that the main big chips manufacturers are located in Taiwan. China does not recognize Taiwan as a separate country, as an individual country. So there are huge tensions in the regions. And together with all other geopolitical tensions, this leads to basically a war, but not with in a traditional way, but in a technical way, so to say. So USA and in a lesser extent Europe's political agenda is aimed to restrict China economically and militarily. So that's kind of interesting when you look at recent developments in the US. It was in the news the other day, yesterday or this morning, I believe. They posed further export restrictions, basically allow or forbidding US, but also non-US companies to export any products, technology to China. So that is really affecting companies such as ASML, which was already affected by those US measures, which affect them, of course, hugely. What we also see, on the other hand, is that both the US and the EU, in view of those political tensions, are trying to make the investment climate a lot of they make huge investments in the semiconductor industry. So in the USA, they're working on the CHIPS Act, and the EU equivalent, European CHIPS Act. That's also something I want to dig in a little bit further. But mainly what you see is a shift, and it's already going on, that production facilities are moving away from the Far East back to or nearer to the US and the EU. So let me see. I think this is I don't know whether okay, sorry. Yeah, here's the stat that what you've seen in Europe. This is quite a nice stat where you can see that the capital expenditures by headquarter location in with respect to semiconductor industry, is that what you see is that Asia, China is really investing a lot in that, but Europe lags behind. So this is something that is really how do you say, affecting the industry. When we
I'm sorry, but not all the slides are moving, I think.
Okay, let me.
We see the agenda now on screen.
Oh, that's also nice, but
Sure.
Let me see. Is it?
Within your PowerPoint, you can see the correct slide?
Yeah, so maybe I start all over again, not with the presentation, but.
Now I see your PowerPoint, indeed agenda. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you can slide down to the correct page.
Yes.
Is it now working?
Yeah, now I see things moving.
Okay, apologies. It was moving on my screen, but probably not on the presentation screen. Apologies for that. So.
Oh, sure. It's fixed.
Here we talked about the market developments, but I think the PowerPoint will be shared afterwards. So we are now at the market developments, and
thank you.
Here you can see clearly that Europe stays behind with making investments. So the European Chips Act, the Commission proposal, well, that's basically meant to to reverse this trajectory by launching a broad investment program along 3 lines of effort. And there are 3 pillars. The first pillar of the act supports the large-scale technological capacity building and innovation in cutting-edge chips. So that's one. The second one is a large-scale investment in production capacities, and the third one is how to deal with the supply crisis. And in essence, the EU is throwing a lot of money at it. A 43 billion number is mentioned, and they're trying also to make the investments with the private sector. So that's a public-private effort. And if you see that, I think maybe some of you are aware of the Horizon Europe program, where companies can get grants from the EU in order to make the investments and get subsidies to run projects. That's quite interesting. There's a whole world behind it. For example, also from an IP perspective, because the EU wants the IP to stay in the EU, whilst US companies with European affiliates of dollar companies, they also want to get access or want to invest and get access. So there is ongoing talks between the EU and the US in order to arrange for that. So that's still ongoing, but it's quite interesting. Let me see whether because again, is it now moving or not?
No, we still have the EU Chips Act on screen. There we see.
Okay. Yeah, there it's going. So the second market development is around the counterfeiters, what Eduard was talking about, and that's really affecting the semiconductor chips industry as well right at this moment. And the counterfeiters are just free riding or exploiting on the global supply shortage. What happened during the COVID period? There's just simply said during the COVID, there's a lot of high demand for digital devices, and because of the manufacturing problems, there are just simply not enough chips. So counterfeiters jump in that hole and try to jump on the bandwagon. And my experience from I've done a lot of counterfeit combating for clients, and what I always find remarkable is how easy counterfeiters can switch from one industry to another industry. So they are very, very quick to see or to seek or to seize opportunities there. So that's interesting, but it's also worrying, of course. So I can refer to for people who want to read more about it in the intellectual property crime threat assessment that Europol has done, but it is a huge problem. So those are the 2 major market developments. And if we take a look at now for what's important from a IP rights perspective, I would like to say something about the nature of an IP right, and then I think it's needless to say that it's important to protect innovation and inventions, and the way you do that is by, I think from a industry perspective, that the most important one are the chips rights, the patents, and the trade secrets. I will discuss them briefly in more detail, and of course I will elaborate a little bit on how to protect your IP rights from a contractual perspective as well. So the first one, and that's an interesting one because it's not very, how would I say it, popular or successful in the Netherlands, and maybe that has something to do with the fact that the Netherlands traditionally has not like a lot or huge chips makers, but that's the so-called chips right, or in Dutch topografierecht, and that protects the specific design of chips or semiconductor products. And it's about the 3-dimensional model that is obtained by superimposing different layers. That's in essence what it's trying to protect. And the criteria for obtaining protection, it's close to a copyright, so to say, and that requires like an intellectual effort. So you have to be creative, so to say, and the design may not generally be known in the semiconductor industry. The way you get a protection differs from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but in the Netherlands, we have the system that you should register. And this is, for example, in Belgium, you don't need the registration. And the scope of protection, which is basically for a lot of IP rights, the same, that you can prevent third parties from using your design or your chip's right without your they should have consent in order to do that. So in legal terms, you talk about that you have the exclusive rights to reproduce the topography, make a semiconductor product that incorporates that topography, and commercially exploit the topography or semiconductor product comprising the topography. So that are exclusive acts for the rights holder. The term is that they are valid for 10 years. But there's also, and that runs from the end of the year in which topography is first placed on sale anywhere in the world, and the rights to a topography has not been utilized and for which no application has been filed, then we have a term of 15 years. So that's a bit of a different. But what is kind of interesting is that in the Netherlands there are only, I would say, a handful of registrations by parties like NXP and Philips, but it seems not to be very popular, so to say. So the causes are a little bit different, difficult there's no case law about it, so there's also not a lot of cases. One of the reasons probably is that there are simply not enough commercial interest for the big chip makers here in the Netherlands. Has like the Intels, they are just not located in the Netherlands. They don't make the chips here. So, but that's kind of interesting to see. So I think that from an IP perspective, the most important one are the patents, and a patent is that protects the invention. That's basically the solution to a technical problem. There we have like 3 criteria in order to get the protection. The invention must be new, so it must never be made public anywhere in the world. It should involve an inventive step, and that is when you compare it to what's already known or out there, it would not be obvious for someone with good knowledge and experience of the subject that he came to the same solution of the problem. And then the third one, it should be capable of industrial application. In other words, you should make a product out of it, or you should actually apply it. How do you get protection? That's a very lengthy and costly process. So that's if you want to invest in patents, well, you need a bag of money, so to say. There's an application phase, there's an examination phase, and then you get a grant. There are several ways. In essence, you have national patents, but you have a European patent procedure and a worldwide patent procedure, where you have like that's more like from an efficiency perspective. If you apply for the European one, you can designate individual states, and then the patent will be examined on the European level, and then you can pursue for the different countries you have designated. Again, the scope of protection here is that you get an exclusive right to act against third parties who are applying the invention. So, and the term of protection is 20 years, and it's very relevant to the semiconductor industry, particularly for, well, let's say all the machines that are producing the chips. There are literally hundreds of patents involved. So if you take a look at the ASML patent portfolio, that's really huge, and the same goes for a lot of other players in the industry. Thirdly, that's not so much what we IP lawyers call like a traditional IP right, but it's sui generis, so to say. So it is definitely of very much important in the industry, and that are trade secrets. And simply that is protecting information that is valuable to your organization, to your company. And the information can range from know-how, but also to a non-patented invention. If you want to keep it secret, then nobody else can use it, but you should keep that information secret. You're on a European level, in a couple of years ago, they acknowledged that, or tried to harmonize that trade secret law. We already had it in the Netherlands, but they made it more uniform and essentially introduced that the trade secret is protected, provided that the information then is kept confidential. It should have commercial value, and the owner should have taken reasonable measures to keep it secret. And there's something, a link to cybersecurity. Trade secrets can be stolen digitally. So that's really important to keep in mind. How do you get protection? There's no registration needed, but you have to make sure that you keep it secret. So you have to take a lot of safety measures. Again, here you can prevent third parties from using your trade secret information and from using that secret. Interestingly is that there's no time limit here. So as long as you can keep it secret, it's yours. Hence it is really important to, again, take those measures that nobody can access it or unlawfully access it. And that not only includes like third parties, but also employees or people within your organization who have access. You should have strict policies there in order to avoid that your valuable trade secret will become public. So it's nice to have those IP rights, so to say, but it is also important to obtain the IP rights. And here we have two types, so to say. You have probably employees who are, we call the inventors, working for you on basis of most intellectual property laws. Any inventions or IP rights they create, they will vest in the employer by operation of law, and that's applying a fiction, and the salary is deemed to be a reasonable compensation for the loss of IP rights by the employees. However, we always recommend to make clear arrangements with your employees. Just to make it clear, have good IP clauses in your employment contracts. It's really, really important, because there will always be situations where if things are not entirely clear and you have to rely on the fiction that's in the law, then you just don't want to end up if it's your golden egg, so to say. So that's with respect to employees. The other thing is, of course, working with third parties. Whether that is on an R&D level, cooperation, you should make really good contracts there and think thoroughly upfront on what you actually want to achieve there. In the sense is that what kind of IP or trade secret or whatever confidential information you want other parties to have access to. And the other thing is, of course, once you have created something and you are paying, especially when you're paying for something, you want to make sure that you own it. And that's also that you can contractually arrange, but you should definitely do that upfront. And my experience is that being also involved in a lot of venture capital deals where we act for investors and they go to startups or smaller companies, and that's understandable. They just want to develop a nice product and start working with everybody and have no contracts in place. And then the due diligence phase starts, and then people are saying like, oh, okay, but those rights are still with the original creator or maker, but because that is the starting base. And that's again, please be aware of that. Have proper NDAs in place, have proper contractual documents in place. Lastly, about that, of course, we have the exploitation phase, and that is once you have like valuable IP rights, you can of course use that to earn money, and you do that via license agreements. It can be cross licenses whereby you join teams with other parties in order to make a product. So that is from that aspect. Moving to IP enforcement, there are several fields to explore here. We have criminal enforcement, civil enforcement, and we have what I call the customs enforcement, the anti-piracy regulation. I will briefly discuss those. In the Netherlands, and that's in Europe, it depends a little bit from country to country, but in the Netherlands, basically the starting point is that the IP right owner should take civil action themselves, and only, for example, the public prosecution authorities or the field will come into action if there's a threat to public health or safety or society, when there's a professional large-scale counterfeit or piracy, or if big criminals are involved. So my advice is always to have a proper plan and know that if you want to enforce your IP rights, it will cost you money. You can recover that for a part from the infringer, but sometimes infringers you cannot find because the nature is too high. And in order to, of course, get authorities on board, please be aware that my experience is that authorities like to cooperate and build relationships because they also have an interest, of course, to fight counterfeit or infringement, large-scale infringements. So in the end, it's a joint effort, but primarily the rights holders should take action themselves. But in certain cases, you can join forces, or the field, or the IGZ with the C, that's the Inspectorate for Health, will take action. So having said that the civil enforcement is primarily the goal in the Netherlands. You do that through civil court proceedings, where you can claim the cease and desist, you can claim compensation of damages, but importantly, you can also claim that the infringer discloses any and all information related to the infringement, which is often needed in order to go back to the source where the infringer is located, because you also want to go back to the source. What is there a challenge, and I think that links to the SandGrain solution, is that in terms of counterfeit, it's often very difficult because they are so smart, these guys, these infringers, because the burden of proof that it is counterfeit is in principle on the IP rights holder. So you have to prove that the products found are counterfeit. If you don't use markers or identification tools, it will sometimes be very difficult to establish that. And there the SandGrain solution is one of those examples where you can more easily and say authenticate. So this is original product, service, or whatever, and this is not. This is really important in practice. It works a little bit different when we talk about parallel or gray marketed goods. There's life a bit easier for IP rights holders because the burden of proof that if a parallel trader says, well, these are original goods, but I've parallel imported them, then the burden of proof that is the case is in principle upon the parallel trader. So there's a little bit of advantage there for IP rights holders. Thirdly, we have the anti-piracy regulation, and this is a regulation that was put in place already 20 years ago. The 2013 one is a better version, so to say. And on basis of that, customs throughout all Europe can act against counterfeit. And the way they do it is that you, as an IP rights holder, file a custom notice where you provide all kinds of information around the rights you own, whether that are patents, trade secrets, or trademarks, or whatever IP right you can invoke. And you also share actively intelligence and information about possible infringers. So there, the EU Customs has a database, a central database where you can put in all those information, and everywhere in Europe, customs authorities can look into that. And the customs authorities take an active role in stopping possible infringing or counterfeited goods, which is really effective tool. So there will be a a safety net at the border. You as a rights holder will then be informed if there is a suspected consignment. And then what happens is that under the regulation, you have can follow the simplified procedure. And that means that in case the alleged, or well, let's say the infringer does not object to the seizure of the goods for destruction purposes within a certain time frame, 10 days, then its consent is deemed to be given to the destruction. So that's a really powerful tool for IP rights holders. And when I started 20 years ago as a lawyer, I've done many of those cases, and it really gives you a lot of advantages over the infringers. But again, it also depends a lot on which information you share with customs and the way you are willing to protect your rights through customs, because also there you need the guys on the ground to actively seize those infringing products. If the infringer, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the clock at the time. We've passed a few minutes already.
I'm skipping. Shall I quickly jump to the data to the cybersecurity?
Well, yes, please, and then Jacco can of course introduce.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Take your time. This is interesting for me too. So take your time, and I'll go through it like fast enough.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for the heads up. So cybersecurity, there are also a lot of EU developments there. The end of 2020, the EU introduced a new strategy, and that basically covers the security of essential services such as hospital, energy grids, and railways. But it also covers the ever-increasing number of connected objects we all have in our houses, homes, and offices and practices. And the focus of the strategy is building collective capabilities to respond to major cyber attacks, working internationally in a better way. And one of the signs of that is that they established a joint cyber unit. So on the European level, it really has its attention. That also a result of that attention is also a lot of new regulations and directives. I only have I had to make a choice there. So with respect to data, there is also a lot of going on, sharing data, which data you may share, which not. I think a lot of people have heard about the GDPR. That caused also a lot of attention in the market as well. I focused a little bit more on the cybersecurity here. There will be an update of the what we call the NIS2 directive. The NIS1 directive was put in place in 2016, but there will be an updated version, which I believe is almost in force. It's I don't know exactly, but I think it's on the brink of that. And it's an update of the directive on security in network and information systems. And the goal is simply to raise the bar, to make a high common level of cybersecurity across the whole of the EU. And it poses all kinds of obligations on operation of essential services and digital service providers. So in essence, it's an increase. It gives more tools, and examples of that is that it is a broader scope. So now also social media platforms, pharma and food sectors are also included. and it has extended to medium-sized companies. Interestingly, also management will be more liable for taking the cybersecurity management. So that's interesting for directors and people who are in charge. They really have to do something. Also, the cyber risk management measure will be increased, and that includes a supply chain diligence as well. There will be an amended procedure for incident reporting requirements, and as an incentive to comply with all those new measures, there will be fines and penalties. I would like to emphasize that next to that, there are some other acts in the pipeline. Artificial Intelligence Act. I think the EU is a front runner in that respect. So there will be also attention to what kind of risks those AI products and services, if they pose a too high risk, there will be measures taken as well. As said, there will be a new data act around access to data and use of data, but there's also a huge component of better protect those databases. There will be a Cyber Resilience Act coming your way, which is about uniform cybersecurity standards for networked devices. And last but not least, also with digital services, as you may have noticed, there is a DSA and a DMA coming. DMA is more around competition law, big tech, and the DSA is aimed at platforms to take stronger action against contact, which is illegal, and to try to create more transparency and enhance cooperation with the authorities. That will be enforced 1 January 2024. Seems like a long time from now, but I'm sure that time flies. The same goes for me. I've done enough talking. I hand it gladly over to the next speaker. Thank you very much. Of course, I'm happy to take any questions.
Of course. No, sure. But looking at time, I'd like to move to Jacco. Welcome, Jacco. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm almost ready to share, and I promised I will do it quickly. So
you have some time.
I will try to do all 124 slides within those 10 minutes.
Like a movie.
Kidding. No, I don't have that many slides. Don't worry. But I will try to focus on the cooperation part of the Digital Trust Center. We will send this this presentation to all the people here. So some of these things I will go through really quickly, and you can look at it in the weekend or anything. But I will try to focus on the important parts which I think will be very interesting for you. Bringing, as Benjamin said, part of IP is lost when it's outside, but you also have to take care of the trade secrets and IP when you are inside your own company, and how you're going to solve that. And now I have
to
to
see your screen. Yeah. Moving.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does it switch? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Things I wanted to go through. What is the Digital Trust Center? How do we stimulate cooperation? How can we help you? How did other people do this? And how can you? What we do as Digital Trust Center, the important part is we have to enable Dutch corporations to become more resilient. We work together with the National Cybersecurity Center. They have the vital companies and central government, and we have the obligation to enable the rest of the Dutch corporations. That's about 1.8 million, and that's big shoes to step into. But we try, and the most important part of helping is that entrepreneurs work together to make things possible, and we use that a lot. How can we help? We have a subsidy every year for 2 or more companies that work together to build tools, to build to help other companies to be more cyber resilient. That's 1 million every year. and you have to do half of it yourself, and the half we add to it. You get really good corporations from that. One might be really known to you. That's the Cyberweerbaarheidscentrum Brainport. That's for the high-tech industry. It's a place where high-tech companies work together and exchange information. I will get more into that later on. Also, and that's, I think, really important for your market, I stress for sectors to go into the information sharing and analysis center. That's a place where companies and people, in a way, can share information when they are in the same branch. It's built on trust, and it's built on the fact that if one of us makes a mistake, the other ones can learn from the mistake if the first one is ready to tell about it. And we understand you don't want to tell to everybody, but we hope you will tell in your sector what's happening to you, so other people can learn from that. And we are trying to do that, and we think it can be really helpful in your line of business, especially because you all have a special place in a way. Probably next year or the year after, you will be vital, so you will be part of NCSC, but also you have the same problems with the big states challenging you on cybersecurity, and it's pretty difficult to do that on your own. So I think if you could help each other, that would help you very much. So if you're interested in starting one like that, please give me a call. It will make some other things really easy, like getting the services, like IVD and MIVD. If you want some extra information from them, that might be possible. We'll cooperate with the NCSC. You can cooperate with other ISACs in an easy way. But we also have, we work together with branches in a normal way. We exchange information stuff with them, and we try to bring other corporations in contact with each other, so they learn from each other. That's important for us. We also have a website that is based on really low mature information, and I think everybody that is here is further than that, so I will go pretty quickly through it, and you will feel free to see. That's also information on how to work together, and there are tools on that, and some of these tools might be interesting for you. Those tools on the basic scan on cyber resilience, that's low level, but we also have operation technology scan to see where you are on your process engineering, your OT, ICS SCADA appliances. These things can be really handy to look also with Brainport in your CIRA. They made something new that's called CIRA, and that has to do with the fact that you can assess how your cybersecurity is, but you can also assess your supply chain for that. Just looking into that would be really interesting too. Then we also provide specific information on kwetsbaarheden, and I don't know the English word for that now, but like the exchange problems that were last week, we try to send that through as fast as possible, and also give some actions you can do to solve that problem. And we've got all different kinds of information, you can see that. We also have a digital trust community, and that is a place where people can talk about cyber to each other in a trusted place, and you can exchange experiences and help each other in a way, but this is quite bigger than an ISAC is. So that's how fast I can do it. I think I went through it really fast, so I won't keep you up too long. But I really want to stress that the big thing is a lot of time everybody's looking at central government to help to make the Dutch organizations more resilient. But I think 90% of being more resilient, you can learn more from other companies that are busy in the same line of work than we as a government know. And there's enormous amount of knowledge in Holland, but it's not all in the government. So please look at each other, see how you can help each other. ASML is doing a great job doing that and helping other companies. But you can also join that, and you can join that with the Cyberweerbaarheidscentrum Brainport to join that. But also maybe an ISAC would be a good thing to start and see how you can help there. And that's it, I think. Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you, Jacco.
Well, did I save some time here, or didn't I?
You did it in a rush, but we will share the presentations later.
Yeah, are there any questions? Are there any questions? Because I do have time for questions now.
Well, indeed, to kick off, I have one, if allowed. Well, the tools you showed are available via your website, I assume, or at least a way to
find the tools. Them. Yeah. All the tools are available through the website. You can find them there. There's a lot of information there. Some of it is on a low maturity basis, but there's also some really technical information that can be really interesting. Yeah.
Okay, and those are free of charge in general for the Dutch companies?
That's the big advantage of me as government. I don't have to ask money for the information I give away. That's the luxury thing. I used to be in sales and I had to ask money for everything, but now I can give it away.
Okay. Well, but good to know. And at the end, you just mentioned things like an ISAC, how to start. But I assume there are already quite some initiatives running in the Dutch market, which people can connect to. So
yes,
join.
But the difference between an ISAC and, say, Brainport is that Brainport is much bigger. And when you start an ISAC, what's the most important part? It's that you trust each other and that you're in the same line of a company. So if you're with more than 25 people, it's already starting to get difficult. You have to have a small group of people to talk to each other, to exchange experience, to be able to trust each other enough to tell that you made a really big fuck up or anything. And the other ones won't tell it to anybody else. But also, if you are in trouble, that you are able to find the other people without having to introduce you at that time, and then you are in trouble already. So you already made that connection and you trust each other, you know each other, so it's easier to help each other.
Yeah,
that's the big difference between an ISAC and we are busy on this time with TNO to have a research and a project to make ISACs more easy to start and to make them more practical and to give more practical guidelines how to start it and how to do it.
Yeah. Okay. That's a new initiative. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was a question which popped up in my mind. But of course, somebody from the public that would like to ask a question to Eduard or Benjamin, of course. Please raise your hand if so, and you can switch on your camera. But if not, towards Benjamin. Well, good to see that Baker and McKenzie, that you have so much focus also on the semiconductors business, which of course is a quite specific market. And am I correct that there are differences between chip rights and more into hardware? If correct, I read a timeline of 10 years for chip rights and 15 towards hardware or machines. Is that right?
No. The chips right, the 10, 15 years is only related to the chips right. And that has to do something when you start or file your registration. But that the chips, right, actually is about the chip, eh? So and only the chip. So for the semiconductor industry, there are a lot of other hardware things that are protected by patents. So, and of course the trade secrets, but I think that the patents is the at least here in the Netherlands, the main source of protection, so to say, with respect to the semiconductor industry.
Yeah. Looking at the semiconductor industry, of course, chip design is very important. And the equipment manufacturers, well, like the biggest one, ASML, of course, but there are many others. But looking at those companies in general, a lot of research and development is done here in the Netherlands, but production of the machines can be done abroad, for instance, in Germany or further away into Asia, like Singapore or Taiwan or China, of course. Can you say something in particular about how to protect your knowledge then, if the research is done over here in the Netherlands, but production?
Yeah, so I think you can contractually you can put everything to paper, so to say. But and there you have the lawyers or the legal people who can make it work on paper. So whether that is not really, I would say, the problem, apart from the fact that you have to do your homework. But in practice, there's a difference. What happens in practice? And there, I think, in this digital age, there we have a lot of challenges because people are simply not paying attention or are a bit sloppy or whatever. So you really need to have your policies in place and comply with those policies. And I think that the technically more advanced companies are really into that. But then again, in view of geopolitical tensions, we all know about an Israeli company that puts spyware on your phone. Huawei is been blocked for reasons. So there is a lot of danger out there, so to say, and also danger where you're not aware of. So, and not even coming from infringers, but also coming from governments. And so it is a really challenging world. And that's what you also see is that production and things are coming home, so to say, or want to have closer to home because companies feel more safe if production is done within the EU or within the US.
Within 1 hour.
So that is the broad trend you are seeing, and that is a very much a different world than 20-25 years ago, so to say.
Yeah, it's challenging today.
Yeah, it's really challenging for companies as well, particularly if you are and it's also has a very heavy cost component, because production here is more expensive than in the Far East. So the allocation of production factors also come into play.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Mr. Bert Krikke, welcome. You have a question?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Bert Krikke, Managing Director of Novio Tech Campus. We as a campus, we try to stimulate cooperation. At this moment, we have companies at our campus with American models, with Chinese models. And when I hear your presentations, I'm still wondering if we should stimulate cooperation or not. Of course, this is a little bit like a joke, but how can we stimulate cooperation but still be aware of all the risk of IP?
Yeah,
difficult question.
Yeah, so maybe the others can also give input of that, but I think in a nutshell is that it comes back on what I was just saying, so to say, because on the one hand you want to cooperate and you want to do nice things and you can benefit from that. On the other hand, it's a balance act. There is danger out there. So in terms of so you can put everything on paper, but do you really trust the others with whom you are cooperating? And there you can, of course, and maybe that's for the others to jump in, to put more safety measures in place. So what I also see is that the more sophisticated your system is in terms of people allowing people access to certain things. So you can have like a decision tree. Who needs access to what at what point in time? So I guess you are in a way facing that challenge and make that further assessment before just cooperating. So maybe if Eduard or Jacco to further comment on that.
Yeah, Eduard. You're on
You're
mute.
You're mute, Eduard.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute myself, which yeah, I can share a little bit my own observations in the industry for some time. The semiconductor industry has always been characterized by cooperation and competition. We have a word for that, co-opetition. And so you actually have to work together and compete with each other, which is that is nothing new. That has been the thing in the semiconductor industry for a long time. What you have to be additional extra aware on nowadays is actually protecting your assets, and not only your IP and your patents and the know-how of your people, but actually in the future also your equipment and your installed base, which is actually in the whole world and which is more and more connected as well. So I think competition is nothing new, but you have to you have to go to next levels to, let's say, protect the position, the proprietary positions that you have as an actor in the field. I know from ASML and China that China has been investing in a company with 1,200 to 1,500 people for 15 years. The government spent the money just to try to copy some of the old equipment of ASML. And we always thought that they would not be able to do that, but they did. Now, the systems that they make are 20 systems from 20 years ago. But that is the beginning. So you see, ASML is the jewel, let's say, in the crown of not only Holland, but also of Europe. You see that there's really an extra dimension of economic, let's say, importance that needs to be. And in Nijmegen, I can see it. It's not so easy with. I think it's an element you just have to be aware of, and certainly in Nijmegen with Chinese owners and American owners, Nexperia, for example, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be careful. You have to be really careful, and yeah, there's not much you can do. The world has changed in that way, and you have to be more careful than you had to, because the way to lose it became just a lot easier in a way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mute, Tom, mute.
Thanks, Jacco. Via the chat, Mr. Hans Helsloot has shared a contribution. Also, RVO, they can support in questions regarding patents and trade secrets. So thank you, Hans. And thank you, Bert, for your question. Somebody else with a question or remark, suggestion to share? Otherwise, I do have one for Eduard. To my knowledge, an OEM company is not allowed to restrict competition.
Yeah.
But if true, how do we deal with that?
Yeah, I think it is not allowed legally, globally, that you restrict competition in general. So there has to be the opportunity for, let's say, competition and good services as well. So I think from our perspective is controlling assets with trust anchors in the field and trust anchors that are not made in China gives you at least the because in China they fall off a lorry some of the times, and not only in China, by the way, also in other countries. But having control over the process allows, let's say, the good secondary service suppliers also to give better services as well, and then you get a better managed, let's say, life cycle process with, let's say, benefits the bona fide secondary suppliers, and not the malafide. So
yeah, make a difference, so to say.
Yeah, and certainly for brand, because the brand is on the system, and it doesn't matter if it's a 30-year-old system, 20-year-old system, or a 40-year-old system. It still says Philips or ASML or whatever. And
it's your company.
It is, and you know, it's your brand. So
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Looking at the time, is there somebody that would like to take the stage and leave a last question towards the group? If not, then I would like to thank all, Jacco, Benjamin, Eduard, of course, first of all.
Thank you.
And next to that,
You're welcome.
yes, please. Thank you. So I like to let you know that the next topic special is already scheduled for February 14, a great date, so to say. If somebody has a certain topic that you would like to share that we can look into together, well, please let me know. It's a platform made by and available for all of you. Well, more information can be found on our website, hollandsemiconductors.nl, and you can also follow us on LinkedIn for new and other events. So, well, I'm looking forward to see you all in a few months' time, or in Munich, perhaps.
I think there's still one question.
Okay,
Marcus,
sure.
questions?
I'll share the screen again with you. Yes, Eduard.
No, I just see somebody's raised his hand, Marcus.
I'm sorry.
Questions.
Marcus, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to applaud. Sorry, excuse me.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see. Victor Haase, am I right that you would like to ask a question?
No, I'm fine, Tom. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay. No worries, no worries. Then I think we've heard and learned a lot. We will share a recording soon of today's webinar and also the 3 presentations of these gentlemen. And well, as Marcus already did, I also like to give a big shout out and applause towards the gentlemen, and look forward to see you. Like I just wanted to mention, perhaps in Munich, mid-November at Semicon Europa, we will host the Dutch Pavilion. So please feel free to visit us. It's from 15 to 18 November in Munich. And otherwise, we'll meet perhaps in person or online at one of these options. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Benjamin, Eduard, Jacco, and looking forward to see you all next time.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Thanks
evening.
for the organization.
Bye.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.